Hi everyone, Fenris Models here, and today I'll be taking you through my build of Airfix's Spitfire Mk.XII in 1/48 scale in a special Jurassic Park tour vehicle scheme. Now, this video is going to be much less about the build of the kit and will be more focused on the painting and the decaling. This is due in part because my system did not record much of the assembly process. In fact, once we get the cockpit painted, the entire rest of assembly is missing, including painting the pilot. The build itself was pretty straightforward though, no real issues except for one thing that I will highlight later in the video. Now, as I worked on the cockpit, I did have to make a decision. Did I want to paint it in basic cockpit colors, or did I want to do something a little more unique? Well, since I was going to be doing this one up like one of the tour vehicles from Jurassic Park, I just thought it made sense to go ahead and paint it up in a similar manner. In the movie, the vehicle interiors were this beige faux leather with some hardwood accents. To match that beige, I made a 1:4 mix of Vallejo Model Air wood and Vallejo Model Air light gold gray. The whole interior was coated in this mix. It did take a few coats to get a good opacity with the color, but that was to be expected to a degree. Model Air wood was then used to pick out a few panels, including the headrest and the backside of the fold-down hatch. As mentioned earlier, you'll see we're skipping to a completed plane. However, I did have one issue. The instructions have you adding the pilot at the very end, and as you can see here, the shoulders are a little too wide to fit into the plane. I had to sand them down to get them to fit all the way in. The canopy was masked and cemented in place, and then we can start the pre-shading. Vallejo Model Color Black 70.950 was used along every panel line, as well as places where shadows may naturally gather. I don't tend to apply this in a particularly precise manner. Rather, I like to keep it a little messy to give some visual interest to the finished coats of paint. Model Air Yellow RLM04 71.078 was then applied on the bottom surfaces, making sure to apply just enough so the pre-shading would still show through. Tamiya X28 Part Green was then applied on the top surfaces as well as the forward portion of the wings, allowing it to soft fade into the yellow. Then it was time for the tricky part, the striping. I decided to start with the wings since that would be the most difficult part. Tamiya masking tape was used to mask where I wanted it to end on the wing root. Vallejo Model Air Red 71.269 was then applied freehand. I first drew a slightly wavy line where I wanted the red to end, and then I went back and filled it in. I really should have masked this with some sort of masking putty or something. In my mind's eye there was a soft edge to the red on the vehicles, but it turns out it should have been a hard edge. Well, good to know for future projects, I guess. From there, at regular intervals, I pulled some of the red down in decreasingly long lines from wing root to ring tip. Similar was applied to the tail. Then the same was repeated on the starboard side. It's important here to keep the stripes as close to how they appear on the other side as you can, but they don't need to be exact. According to design documents from the movie, the stripes aren't perfectly mirrored for the tour vehicles either. And of course, the top side center stripes should be applied in a similar manner. For the spinner, I also went with the same red. I should have painted it separately, but since it was already on, I had to do some sort of masking to protect the rest of the plane. Turns out, a sheet of printer paper works just fine. Then it was on to detail painting. Model Color Black was used on the prop blades as well as on the portion of the tires that showed on the bottom of the aircraft. The bottoms of the cannons were picked out in Model Air Red to match the top side. And the exhausts were painted in Model Color Gunmetal 70.863. Now, at this point, the model sat for a few days. When I came back to it, I did notice that the green on the wings felt like it wasn't quite enough, so I extended it further down to balance it out a little better. This also let me fade the line between it and the yellow just a little bit better as well. The model was taken outside and given a coat of Mr. Super Clear Gloss Varnish, and then it was time for the decals. I went through the included sheet and applied all of the stencils and everything common to all of the schemes, such as the walkway lines on the wings and the no-step markers. I also picked up some Jurassic Park decals online. These needed to be trimmed as close to the design as possible, as the carrier film went across the entirety of the sheet. I did find that the decal application for these was a little more tricky compared to the cartograph ones included in the kit. Not only did they require significant time in the water to release from the backing paper, but they also wanted to move all over the place when I went to squeeze the water out from under them with a cotton bud. For the tail identifier number, I found these in my collection of leftover decals from previous kits. I think it happened to look pretty similar to the numbering used on the tour vehicles, or at least it was the closest I'd be getting anyway. A sharp hobby blade was used to score along any panel lines the decal may be laying over. And then Microsol setting solution was applied. Tamiya panel line accent color brown was used on the panel lines. A cotton bud damp but not wet with artist white spirits was then used to clean up any excess panel liner. I made sure to wipe in the direction of either airflow or gravity depending on which made sense for the surface. A coat of dull coat was applied, and then we can pull the tape from the canopy and call this one... Oh, no, that's not good. Well, somehow varnish got up under the tape and horribly crazed the plastic. And unfortunately, I have no spare canopy pieces I can swap out with this, so we need to figure out how to fix it. Because of the way the damage was, it had completely eaten into the plastic. It wasn't something that could just be buffed out or something, but the best I could do was just remove that section entirely. So that's what I did. This is, after all, a Jurassic Park themed scheme. I can easily just turn it into some dinosaur damage from a pteranodon or something. Cemented the canopy back in place, and now we can call this one good. So there we go. Airfix's Spitfire Mk.XII in 1/48 scale, done up as a Jurassic Park tour vehicle. I had a lot of fun with this one, and I hope you enjoyed the build too. I'll admit I did have some issues with this one. In addition to the aforementioned problems with the pilot and the decals, when I went to apply the red over the green, you can see in some places where it shrank back along panel and seam lines. I repainted them quite a few times actually, and it still kept happening. I'm really not sure why. If anyone has any ideas, please let me know in the comments below. But overall, I'm quite happy with it. I'm thinking about attempting the Jurassic Park Jeep, Sand Beige, and Red scheme on another World War II fighter, though I've yet to decide which to use. So what did you think of the build? Let me know by leaving a comment below. Thank you Cali Bear and all of my starter set patrons. Your support is invaluable and keeps this channel going. And thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and if you want to watch more of my content, how about checking out one of these videos here? Either way, remember, stay safe and keep modeling.